This video will go over the Unit 4 Critical Evaluation Planner Part 1, which is part of the Unit 4 Pre-Writing in English 101. In this assignment, you'll be using Reading 4, which for this particular semester is ungrading, but your semester may be different. Always make sure that you check to make sure you know which reading that you'll be using. You can always go to the Course Readings tab in your left-hand sidebar and see what the schedule of readings is for your semester. I will also try to make sure that it's included in the assignment instructions and in the announcements as well. For this particular semester, it's ungrading. So in this assignment, you'll be downloading the Critical Evaluation Planner Part 1. It will look like this as a blank document, and you'll be completing it based on primarily the Unit 4 reading, but you will also be using an additional reading for the last part where we talk about counter evidence. So I do have a resource called the Critical Evaluation Planner with Notes that I've provided. It's mostly the same as the empty template, but there are some links to helpful resources as you are going through the assignment. So I'm just going to use this planner with notes for the video today. You'll start by identifying the summary elements of the article, which means identifying things like the author, the title, the source, and the date. These, if you'll remember, are the same items that you would put in your introduction sentence. If you remember the summary cheat sheet that we did in the other units, I'll probably link to that here as well. Then you're going to identify the author's claim or argument and the main points of evidence or support from the article. This is, again, another skill that we've been practicing all semester. We definitely did this in Unit 3 when we were trying to break down the argument for Reading 2. So hopefully you're familiar with this process and you'll be able to identify the author's claim and main points from Reading 4. The next part of this worksheet asks you to identify the evidence that's been used in the article to support the author's argument. You're going to be quoting the evidence directly, including citations. I did include a link here to the Citations Illustrated. There may be other resources linked as well. Then you're going to identify what type of evidence it is. Now this information, as well as ethos, pathos, logos, and how to evaluate evidence, these are all located in the course under the Unit 4 Learning Materials folder. There's information here about evidence and how to evaluate it, ethos, pathos, and logos, as well as some other information that you'll find helpful for Planner Part 2. But I also want you to know that I've created this Everything You Need to Know About Critical Evaluation guide that goes through all of the elements for the Unit 4 paper all in one place. So this guide identifies exactly how to complete this assignment. It goes through the summary writing, it goes through the types of evidence and how to evaluate them. It goes through ethos, pathos, logos, fallacies, counter evidence, and then we're moving on into Planner Part 2 here, but you're going to also need to evaluate language use, author and source credibility, and make an overall evaluation of the article. So this guide, Everything You Need to Know About Critical Evaluation, is custom made to help you complete the Unit 4 paper. So I have linked to it in several places on this document. You're going to identify the type of evidence that you highlighted up here. Then you're going to identify what persuasive appeal that is an example of. And then you're going to evaluate the evidence overall. Remember that evidence needs to be credible, relevant, and accurate in order for it to be strong evidence. If the evidence that's being used in the article is not relevant or accurate or credible, then that's weak evidence, and you need to be able to identify that. this would be the place to do that. You're going to do the same process, all 4 of these steps, for 3 different pieces of evidence. Each one of these evidence blocks is going to become a whole paragraph in the body of your final paper. After you've identified all of the evidence and begun to evaluate it, then you're going to look for fallacies in the text. Again, there is a list of fallacies in the Unit 4 Learning Materials subfolder. There's also information on the Unit 4 resource, Everything You Need to Know About Critical Evaluation. There's a section here about fallacies as well, and some identification of common fallacies. So these might be helpful for you. Obviously, I linked to that. Then you're going to identify what the fallacy is. You're going to quote it from the text and then identify what type it is. We're looking for at least 2 weaknesses that you can identify in the author's argument. The next section of the worksheet asks you to address the counter evidence. And so this particular part of the planner is going to use your additional source, R5. Not the article that I've given you, but the article that you found that presents a counter argument. In this case, you're going to identify all of the article information and then explain what counter evidence is presented in the article and how does it impact the original author's argument. You know, sometimes counter evidence completely refutes the initial argument. Sometimes counter evidence just presents an alternate perspective. So I want you to really think hard about the counter evidence that's in your reading 5, and I want you to try and determine how it impacts the original article. So this is Planner Part 1. Hopefully this answers your questions. Remember that you can always rely on the resources in the Unit 4 Learning Materials subfolder in your course and the other resources that I've prepared for you. And of course, I'm always available if you have questions. You can certainly email me and I'll do my best to help.